Okay, so here is our first tutorial using Dragonframe. It's not a complete overview, but for this particular assignment, which is the bouncing ball, I'm thinking that you can really use this great tool that I've recently started using. So this background right now is just showing you kind of a out of focus still of my film that I've been working on. So you can see up here we're in the main window. This is the shooting window. Sometimes you'll notice it with this X sheet appearing if you want. You can turn that on and off by clicking in this corner up here. You can see my cursor bouncing around. But when you're in this mode, which is when you're going to be shooting animation, this box appears as you bring your cursor into the window. It might look like this when you first see it. However, if it doesn't appear right away, you look for this little pencil that's right up at the top and you click that pencil. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create an arc and we're going to use a line. So we're going to pick the size line. I like using this one right here. And depending if you have a light scene or a dark scene, you can pick the different windows. Now you're going to pick these this little icon right here so you can draw these beautiful arcs. So we're going to be doing the bouncing ball for this. So I'm going to start by clicking off screen, and you can see it's a nice straight line. But if I click again, it'll then suddenly start to curve, and then I can double click and it'll end. Okay, I can do it again and create another curve by putting it right there. Oops, let me just click on that and that again, and I'm going to do another curve, and this one's going to be a little bit shorter because I want it to end right about there. Now, the great thing about these is if you pick this line, you have all these little handles where you can kind of move around the cursor. And what we're trying to do is we're going to try to create that perfect little arc for a bounce. And you're wondering why we're doing this. So because you're moving a character off in space, or this bouncing ball around in space, you're going to need to kind of follow this arc. And instead of having to kind of eyeball it, you can create these. So if you click on this now, you can adjust it like I showed you, or you can click on this. Now, another great part about this is if you click right here, there's these little increments, and suddenly this graph appears. Now, you can tell how many frames you want to do it. When you're first doing your animation, you're kind of want to guess about how far. So I usually use my hand and I kind of figure it out and say the word 1/1000 in my head, which creates kind of a 1 second or 24 frames of animation. So we're going to say that this is going to be 24. So I'm going to put 24 in there, and you can see that it creates 24 moves within that arc. That might be quite a bit. So we're going to knock that down to, let's say, 12 or maybe 18. But as I do that, you can see it keeps on adjusting. Now, the nice thing is what you can do is you can click here and you create this little ball that kind of appears. And now if I press play, you can kind of watch the ball. And you can see it's going at a steady rate, which doesn't really happen in real life. You know, when you're doing a bouncing ball, you would kind of want arcs and things like that. So what you can do is you can start to play with these handles right here, and you can see it getting faster and slower by bending it around. So now if I bent it and I press play again, you can see that it slows down at the very end. Now what we want is an arc right down the middle. So we're probably going to do something like this. All right, you see how I've adjusted it where there's more moves at the top and there's shorter moves at the bottom, and I'm going to try to adjust it just a tiny bit more. Now, the more animation you do, you're going to kind of naturally get good at this and do it yourself, but this is a really fun guide. So you can see, boom, that seems very natural. Boom. So it starts off kind of fast and then ends fast, but at the top of the arc, it's nice and slow. Okay, so I'm going to do that. So that's perfect. I love that. It's in there. Now I could do the same thing to this one. Now, if you to watch my scene that I shot, let's see if it's here. Yeah, there it is. And you're not going to actually see the moves that I already animated, but if I press play, you can kind of see that piece of paper floating through the scene. And what happens is that I had very similar sort of arcs, and you can see that what I did was followed that arc, and it gave me some really nice smooth animation. Now that green thing right there is a jump rig, and I'll paint that out later on either using After Effects or do it by hand in Photoshop. But that's getting a little ahead of ourselves. So for this assignment, we're going to want you to use Dragonframe and to utilize this great tool, because for each arc you can kind of create this same sort of thing, and it can get lower and lower and lower. So we're going to use clay. We're going to use more clay to kind of have the character, or not the character, but the ball leave the ground. If you watch the previous tutorial, you'll see how that's done. So please let me know if you have any questions. This is just a quick look at Dragonframe for this tool that will help you for this assignment. Thank you.